Well, good morning, everybody. I'm honored to be here today. I've attended this conference for several years, and this is my first opportunity being able to present. So let's get started here. I do a lot of work with children, teens, and adults, working a lot with individuals on the spectrum, as well as ADHD and OCD and mood disorders. You know, something that I have been seeing increasingly more prevalent is families and individuals coming in and having complaints and real, serious issues with screen time and how it's affecting the family system, how it's affecting productivity at work, as well as relationships. So I feel this topic is an important one. And I hope that you'll be able to gain some knowledge and tools to take with you after. Okay. So, are we going to be able to switch to the next screen? Sorry, I don't have a clicker. Oh, is that okay? Is that, yeah. Is that, okay, perfect, okay. So our overview of what we're going to be talking about today is what the average screen time usage looks like, the effects of screen time on the brain, as well as the reasons that children with autism are vulnerable to the effects of screen time, as well as tech addiction. And then we'll be moving into screen time guidelines, and then a discussion about different tools and strategies that you'll be able to use at home or in the classroom or out in the community. By a show of hands, can I see how many parents do we have in the audience? Okay, so mostly parents. Do we have any providers or clinicians? Okay, excellent, okay. Okay, so the American Academy, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends no more than 2 hours of screen time per day. But as we're seeing here, we're seeing numbers as high as 9 hours per day of screen time usage in our 11 to 14-year-old range. Obviously, significantly over the recommended amount. This time, is including screen time on tablets, on computers, as well as TV as well, and also including time in the classroom. So, in large part because of these high numbers we're seeing, as well as individuals' difficulty being able to really regulate their own screen time usage, the World Health Organization has developed or recognized gaming disorder as a new diagnosis. And so they've gone on to define this as a pattern of behavior for at least 12 months in which gaming is out of control. The pattern of behavior must show an increased priority to activities that were preferred prior to the gaming usage and really taking precedence over daily activities. I have several clients that I work with who often forget to use the restroom, eat meals, even going out to social events, because gaming has become so addictive. And to kind of exemplify how at home they're kind of regulating that now is setting timers to even do simple tasks, showering, eating, using the restroom. The continuation or escalation of gaming, despite the occurrence of negative consequences. Oftentimes I'm working with individuals who are experiencing interpersonal relationship struggles, evolving into couples splitting up, or for my younger kiddos who are having difficulties in their classrooms, not remembering to turn in work, failing grades, so some pretty serious issues there. So let me ask, with this definition here, how many people might think they either know someone or might themselves possibly have a gaming disorder. Anybody?
Now, can I ask?
Yes.
Because I know gaming disorder is super bad, but what if the kid is literally on a device doing nothing but researching sciences, but they're still addicted? I mean, it's still a problem, but it's not gaming.
Right. So,
does it fall under the same category?
It does, because it's that same kind of interactive screen time.
Yes.
And the research is actually showing that the interactive screen time, whether it's researching something, viewing something on YouTube, or playing a game, is actually more detrimental to development in the brain as opposed to just passive screen time, which would be just watching a TV show or something. So absolutely, yeah.
And I see those same signs, but it's just not gaming.
Right. Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. Yeah. So yes.
Sorry, can you repeat that? You said that researching and doing those things is more detrimental than passive viewing?
Yes, the research is showing that the interactive screen time, where you're looking at the screen, pushing buttons, having to respond, and then getting whether it's gaming or even going on different sites, Facebook or social media things, you're getting the brain's getting those dopamine surges, which is again creating that dysregulation. So the interactive screen time is more harmful than passive, which I know sounds kind of counterintuitive, like what? That doesn't make sense. You're just kind of zoning out watching TV as opposed to doing something active, but it really is having those effects.
So I'm struggling with that because I teach online classes, and so what you're telling me is that when a student is reading content for the class, if they're engaged in it and they're enjoying it, basically you're telling dopamine releases and stuff like that, that's negative. Like say if they're a high school student and they're reading something, like she said, researching a topic that they're interested in.
Right. Well, researching a topic for a paper typically isn't going to be producing the same amounts of dopamine because, unless, well, probably not. They probably aren't going to be getting the same amount of levels as they would if they were playing a game or looking on social media of some sort.
Okay.
But it's the idea that
interactive, like Facebook and Instagram and
right.
YouTube.
Yeah, I think it's more the engagement because it's almost like an obsession.
And you're looking at it as far as, when you're researching and you have an actual book in front of you as opposed to a screen, you're using different parts of your brain to not only kind of absorb that material,
Process it differently. I know. I'm
process it,
struggling with publishers actually not offering hard print books.
Yes, and how,
I'll save my questions.
Okay, yes, that's okay. I appreciate. Okay, so with that being said, only 2.4% of the population right now actually meets the criteria for a gaming disorder, just to kind of put that into perspective. Okay, so let's go into the effects of excessive screen time on the brain. What scientists are seeing is something they're referring to as gray matter atrophy. And what that is the shrinkage or loss of tissue in the frontal lobes. And the frontal lobes controls our executive functioning skills, which we know is extremely important for success in all different areas of life, relationships, academics, careers, all of this. So with that, five so that I've included here are effects on planning, being able to prioritize and organize. Also, it's affecting the frontal lobe executive functioning with initiating, being able to start a task or even kind of know what the first step should be to get that done. Another effect here is the shifting and thinking flexibly. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Michelle Garcia-Winner and her work on Superflex and Rock Brain, being that kind of just getting stuck in that one thought and not being able to think or problem solve or think of other solutions to issues. As well as we're also seeing how it's affecting impulse control. So it also is affecting the impaired cognitive functioning. Delayed information processing. So again, how the brain is recognizing information, how it's then storing it, understanding it, and then responding to it. So it's that kind of input-output. There is affecting that as well, and how we're seeing that is with different information processing, such as like visual. So a child that might see a board, have to copy down information now onto his or her assignment or notebook. There's that delay of visually seeing and knowing what to do with that information and then copying it down on the paper, you know, and then unfortunately what occurs then is the teacher says, oh, you're being lazy, or, you know, you're not trying hard enough, when really what we're probably seeing is more of a visual processing delay. Another example of processing would be auditory processing, with being able to understand details, being able to remember details, as well as following like multi-step directions. Another category here for the cognitive functioning impairment is impulse inhibition. So again, that, you know, impulsive behavior, you know, not having that time to stop, think, and then respond. Now, increased sensitivity to rewards. This again almost sounds like the opposite of what you would think that means, but what this is the increased sensitivity to rewards is that the child or individual now is needing greater sense of reward in order to feel that same sense of pleasure or satisfaction with whatever situation or activity they're involved in. And then on the other side, we're seeing increased insensitivity to loss, which is where now, you know, the child or young adult here is needing greater consequences, more significant loss in order to feel that same sense of effect of, or impact rather, of the consequence. Okay. And then again, kind of tying into the executive functioning is also the poor task performance. You know, again, not being able to organize, remember tasks, and follow through on them. Okay. Let's go into the cravings and the impaired dopamine function. So dopamine is that feel-good chemical in the brain that when it's released is sending signals to the body to do more of that activity. You know, you're craving or wanting to do more of that behavior to get that same sense of pleasure and satisfaction. So when dopamine is released, the cravings and urges for gaming produces in the brain the same exact kind of cravings and urges that you experience when you're taking drugs or having drug cravings rather. In addition, we're also seeing reduced numbers of dopamine receptors and transmitters. Okay. So let's get into the different reasons why children with autism are more vulnerable to these effects, as well as tech addiction. And what I've done is I've broken this down into different categories. So the first category here is the biological. So as we know, a lot of our kiddos and individuals that we're working with produce lower amounts of melatonin already. And what screen time does is emitting that blue light, which then prevents the melatonin from producing. So now we're sort of compounding an already kind of deficit with melatonin now with screen usage, which then creates a lot of sleep disturbances, non-restorative sleep, and you know, as I'm sure most of us know, when we don't get enough sleep, we're not feeling too great the next day. You know, we're feeling a little bit, you know, crabby and have a harder time performing the next day. You know, screen time also increases inflammation by producing increased stress hormones in the body. And if our kiddos are already having inflammation in their nervous system, this again just kind of exacerbates what's already existing there. It's suppressing that melatonin and again not allowing for that non-restorative sleep. Screen time's also been linked to sensory sorry, is there a question? Okay, sorry. Screen time's also been linked to sensory motor delays, as well as the worsening of sensory processing. So again, things like our children might have a difficult time with motor skills, like gross motor skills. That is also affecting their ability to, you know, perform and have those types of skills, as well as sensory. So if a child's already hypersensitive to smells or touches, any of those types of our senses, textures, again, that's just kind of intensifying that already existing hypersensitivity. Now this next point here with electromagnetic fields, I found this to be very interesting. I spent quite a bit of time reading about this, and I'd like to share more of that with you, but the electromagnetic fields is what's emitted from wireless communications and wireless devices. And when our bodies are exposed to that, it's disrupting the inside the body. Sorry. So what, yeah, it's impacting our kiddos because it's disrupting the nervous system and creating increased agitation. So there was there's been actually several different autism conferences where they have built these tents that have acted as shields for these EMFs, these electromagnetic fields. And when individuals and participants from the conference go into that section, they're reporting feeling less agitated, able to concentrate better, and just stress levels come down. And families have gone on then to recreate that same environment in their homes by getting rid of wireless communication, creating those EMF barriers in their own homes, and reporting that their children are not only sleeping better at night, but they're having less stimming behaviors as well as less tics. And just, again, the anxiety and the stress has just dropped with that. Another biological effect is what we call underconnected. So again, individuals with autism, the brains tend to be more compartmentalized in how they process information and kind of less integrated. And so what screen time's doing is it's not allowing for that that whole brain integrated process to happen. It also is deterring healthy development of the frontal lobes. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. So the social and emotional impacts. You know, as we know, the social piece of our kids and wanting to really promote those skills, because those are challenges, are not allowed to be promoted, I guess, in the sense where if you're in front of a screen all day, you're not getting that sense of being able to recognize, you know, tone of voice, facial expressions, being able to understand recognize and respond to those nonverbal communication cues that often just don't get communicated or are missed on a screen. So that's, again, kind of falling into that social communication deficit. And then the arousal regulation issues. I was speaking with a few people before I came up today, and they were sharing with me stories about how their child becomes more kind of aroused and has more emotional kind of outbursts with the screen time, especially when it gets taken away. Individuals are having an extremely hard time being able to regulate their own moods when this screen time is, again, increasing that arousal and stress hormones in the body. Again, when individuals are on the autism spectrum, tend to be more attracted to screen-based technology. I think of a lot of the clients, especially teens, that come in, and adults, I should say as well, that report it feels more comfortable. It feels safer to be able to be in front of the screen and have that interaction rather than having, to worry about remembering, oh, I gotta look at this person, I have to, pick up on all this stuff, and it's too much. And so, because of that, because this group of individuals tend to be more attracted to screen-based technology, it's also setting up a greater risk for them to have different tech addictions, even with smaller amounts of exposure. And the last category I've put together is the psychological impacts as well. So again, the fragile attention system, screen time really does, it fractures the attention and depletes that mental reserves in the brain. As I've said, it really does impair the executive functioning skills needed for success. A lot of my clients and the research shows too that individuals with autism tend to have greater levels of anxiety, whether that be just generalized anxiety or social anxiety. And what screen time does is it actually increases the risk for that social anxiety, OCD, behavior, as well as contributing to high arousal. And the last point for that is psychiatric disorders. Again, individuals are on the autism spectrum are at greater risk for different psychiatric disorders, whether that's a mood disorder, ADHD, OCD, tics. Young people with ASD who are exposed to excessive amounts of daily screen time tend to, especially with gaming, tend to have loss of reality testing, sometimes even experience paranoia or dissociation. And I think this becomes an issue when they're exposed to games where this kind of alternate reality exists, and they almost kind of want to be part of that world and join that. And so it kind of gets a little bit blurred between reality and then the gaming reality. The good news with this, though, is that with limiting and also with decreasing or even eliminating some of that activity, those issues tend to self-correct. So it's not like a permanent issue of now they're having a psychiatric disorder of hallucinating or having paranoia. Okay. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, the American Academy of Pediatrics is recommending no more than 2 hours of screen time per day. And they've broken this up between as young as 18 months all the way up to 6 years. An 18-month-old isn't necessarily in front of a screen to play a video game, but if that is something that they're exposed to, it should be limited to like FaceTime or some type of Skype if maybe the parent or grandparent is out of town, to kind of keep those connections. And the 18 to 5-year-old group range, again, no more than an hour, and they specify that that really should be, you know, high quality content media with parent supervision and engaging in that time with them, so they're not just doing that, you know, independently in their bedrooms. So we've gone over again the effects of screen time, kind of, you know, what the increased risks are, what that looks like. What do we do with all this information? How are we going to be able to help our kids, help our clients, or ourselves in the real world, in the classroom, in the home? So I put together tools to tackle screen time and broken those into, again, the effects that we're seeing with the tools that we can use to correspond with those. So turning off screen time, all screen, 2 hours before bedtime. That would be the ideal preferred time. I know that sometimes, you know, schedules and, you know, kind of life happens and you aren't able to really adhere to that. So if that is, you know, the case, they recommend no less than 30 minutes before bedtime screens should be off, because we want that melatonin in our brains to start developing or producing, to start, you know, sending the signals that, okay, it's time to get tired, it's time to get, you know, going. Some tools to use though for that also would be to use a blue light filter. I don't know if you're familiar with that on your phones and screens. Okay, I'm seeing some heads nodding. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I thought it uses a yellow. Like it's kind of the same.
It turns yellow,
Yeah, on her iPhone.
Yes. Yeah. It's probably night shift.
Makes it so I can't read it, but she uses it all the time. She uses it all the time for her. It works
Do you have a
better.
question?
I was just going to say, on our iPad, I enabled the night mode for 24 hours a day, so that attention throughout the day wasn't affected.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah.
It seemed to help, especially at bedtime.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that it's, I know on the iPhone or Apple products, it's called Night Shift, and I know the Androids have another system, if anybody knows what that one's called. I forgot the name of it, but I know, you know, there's apps you can buy for that too, which really does make a difference. You know, and also, interestingly, kiddos have told me that when it turns to that night shift, they get bored with it. What was that? Oh, I thought you said that there. You were going to add something to that. Yeah, but they calming. Yeah, it is calming, but it doesn't give them that excitement because the screen isn't as vivid and it's not. You know, the colors are kind of muted, and so they're kind of like, this is kind of, you know, kind of boring. You know, and then we're likely to put it down too.
So what time do they? Is it like the 2 hours before?
Yeah. So screen time can't or isn't turned off 2 hours before. Putting it to night shift would be a great strategy to use in that time frame. You know, and if, for example, with, you know, TV or computers, if you're not able to do kind of that muted screen, there are these blue light blocking sunglasses, and you can buy those online, and those actually do the same thing that the night shift does. It is reducing the blue light that's being emitted from the screens.
I think there are screens you can buy to put on top of the screen as well.
Yeah.
Like it hangs over the screen.
Yes, yeah, I've seen those too.
For those of us who already wear glasses.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah. And I think those glasses, I mean, some of them actually look kind of stylish, and some of them kind of more look like big, like construction glasses. But they that would be another good tool to use.
It's kind of funny, my little guy, he'll wear his glasses and his phone still goes to night shift. And I'm like, can you even see him? He's adapted. So.
Yeah,
I was just gonna add that they have a filter for your actual glasses. Like my glasses have a blue light filter on them, so you can't add that to normal glasses.
Okay, excellent. Is that a special like company that
I
makes
just got
those?
them online. Like I ordered my glasses online, and they had the blue light. Like you know how you get like the UV coating and stuff.
Yeah,
It was just one of those options you could add as well. And I do notice a significant difference because I'm on the computer all day. That it definitely
Me too.
like helps with the blue light.
That's fantastic. Okay, I'd like to add that to my to my toolbox here. That's awesome. Thank you.
My son and I have an eye condition, so we have 20/20, but there's a whole host of other eye conditions that a vision therapist can help you find. But we need a rose tint DNI. So for me reading black and white text, I've got to reread things 10 times to comprehend them. But when I put a pink shield over the paper, or I'm
Yes.
going to get my lenses tinted, but you can try it with your kiddos, just cheapos. Some kids like more of an orangey yellow, blue, and they can make you feel different ways too. So it's really interesting learning about the color lens therapy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
I've got it on my LG. It's called Comfort View. It's in the display settings. It's really interesting because I didn't even know it makes such a difference. But I can see how when it gets really low blue light like that, it's really dull.
It is.
There's a lot less contrast in the colors. And I mean, I have bright colors on my screen, so it's cool.
Yeah. Awesome. And limit and monitor screen time usage. I cannot stress that enough. You might see that again in the next slide or two. But limit and monitor screen time usage. Okay. So some of the tools for social and emotional effects that screen time has on individuals with autism, and this can be geared more towards kids or young teens, adults, young adults, but acting out scenes from video games or cartoons. For those of you who have kids, I'm sure you're well aware of Minecraft and Fortnite. Thank you. Yes. I promised my kids that I would not do the Fortnite dance up here while I gave the presentation. But yes, Fortnite, even Mario Kart. These are major games right now that everyone knows about and is into. Well, here's some other ideas to kind of incorporate those same interests that your child already has into some other ways. So acting out those scenes, you all, each of you kind of maybe gets a different character, and maybe you act out the scenes from their favorite part of the cartoon or the video game. Maybe the part where they went up like to the next level or something exciting like that they want to recreate. Taking that same idea to kind of like the next step would be to video record. And I know that is, again, using screens, to review it, but there is, I think, a lot of opportunity there as well. So being able to video record you and your child doing, for example, a obstacle course that maybe Mario Kart had in the video game. So now you're not only being physically active and kind of working on those gross motor skills and all of that, but now you're also being able to review it with your child afterwards and make those observations. Wow, you did such a great job being able to recognize how far away to stand, or just kind of that proximity, or did you notice that your tone of voice sounded, different there? Facial expressions. It just creates a lot of opportunities for learning, as well as having fun, I think. Having your child invite a friend over with similar interests. If your child is able to even play, let's say, a video game with their friend, and you're there to help kind of facilitate that time and being able to talk to them about what's going on in the game, or practicing turn-taking skills, helping even kind of work on conflict resolution skills, if that comes up. So again, there is room for them still to play a video game with their child, but you know, you kind of being there with them and helping them with that interaction. Or if your child's friend would be interested in maybe doing one of those other activities, you know, having them, you know, participate in, you know, a little video, or, you know, getting characters, you know, as creative as they want to be. If your child is not necessarily really theatrical, and that's just kind of not their thing, you know, drawing scenes from a video game. I know cartoons, not cartoons, comic strips, and graphic novels are like really huge right now. So if you wanted to put together even your own little, you know, comic strip or graphic novel of some sort, and able to, again, take their interest, take what, you know, they are attracted to, but using it in this kind of different method of still being able to get them excited and happy and working with them. And then again, limit and monitor screen time usage. So the psychological that I put together here as far as kind of what those tools would look like. Dr. Victoria Dunkley, she's an integrative psychiatrist in the Los Angeles area. She has developed a term called ESS, which is Electronic Screen Syndrome. And with that, she has developed a pretty extensive plan called an electronic fast. Actually, I brought her book with me today so that if anyone's interested in kind of checking it out or looking through it, I'd be happy to you know, share that with you. It's, I think, really valuable information as far as what she's developed here. So what an electronic fast is a 4-week plan where the first week is all about kind of developing it, setting up the, you know, the rules, kind of the prepping and planning phase of it. And then the 3 weeks is of no screen time. And she kind of does make some, you know, variation here as far as if you would, you know, want to still use television. Again, I think her preferred is no screen time, but allowing for, you know, certain variations to happen. But at minimum, getting rid of the, you know, computers, the tablets, you know, all of that that the child becomes so absorbed with. And so in that 3 weeks, you are then tracking 2 to 3 problematic areas. And she's put together kind of 5 different categories of what you might want to consider for that. And that would be the social, the emotional, behavioral, school-related, and physical. So those would be things that you would look at and be able to kind of keep track of and say, wow, you know, in week 1 we noticed a real, you know, decline in some of these, you know, impulsive, you know, behaviors, outbursts. Maybe we noticed that going to bed at night was less of a struggle. We're seeing less meltdowns or tantrums during the day. One of her most, I think, important tools or recommendations she has is to make sure that screens and electronics are kept out of the bedrooms. She really stresses that, the need for those to be screen-free zones. So to make sure that screens are not in the bedrooms, as well as during mealtime or that one-on-one time with your child. And again, limit and monitor screen time usage. Okay, so there might be a little bit of, you know, anxiety about the idea of, you know, taking screens out of, you know, your child's life right now, and that feels like, oh, I don't think we're ready for that. So I have put together some more tips and tools that I think can also provide a lot of help as well. So creating screen-free zones, I just mentioned that a second ago. What that would be, again, is just creating certain areas in your home or even outside your home where screens are not allowed. So, you know, again, putting a priority in like bedrooms for sure, meal times, you know, out at restaurants, wherever those are, but establishing what screen-free zones are.
Question?
Yeah.
Does that include like little watches that have the screen on where you can hit, you know what I'm talking about, the little text messages, you can get your emails and stuff?
Like an iWatch or an
Yeah.
Apple Watch? Is that
Yeah, I don't know, I don't have one, but I know some of our students have them. I don't allow any cell phone use, and they're getting around it by they're able to chat with things on their
Oh,
phone.
they are. They're sneaky like that. Yeah, yeah, right.
They're tricky, and I don't know what to say because I can't go, no watch isn't allowed. It's really, I really hate that they're coming up with this technology. It makes it really hard. I teach teenagers.
Yeah.
I have teenagers who use from the moment they get home until, you know, into the night. They're on their computers and their phones, so.
Are you a teacher?
Yeah.
You're okay. So they're in, and I know some schools will have, you know, those like shoe racks that kind of hang, the cloth ones. Yeah, they'll say, okay, you know, everyone kind of has to turn in their phones. You know, I guess, I don't know that they necessarily need a watch in the classroom,
No.
probably a clock.
Yeah.
So I think I would put that in the same category as a
I'll
phone.
tell you, I will tell you in our case,
Yeah.
my daughter has to have a watch on
Oh.
because it has a heart rate monitor and she has
Okay.
medical issues.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm not
Get
saying your
involved.
kiddos.
So
will
she might
have
have that in her IEP or 5
No, no, no,
It's actually in
That's
her
different.
IEP and it's also in her medical health care plan.
Okay.
So that's
yes.
obviously different, but.
Of course, yeah, that would, yeah, if there's any medical.
But
obviously,
unfortunately, in a watch, you can't just have just the heart rate. I mean, you can have a strap, you know, obviously, but
Sure.
you know, they're going to have all
Right.
kinds of gadgets, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, my kids have to turn in everything, iPods, everything go into a basket.
Yes.
And then they have 15 minutes a day where they get access to the Chromebooks that they have in my class. They don't touch their phones the entire day until the end of the day. They take them home.
Yeah.
I'm really strict, and I'm the only strict teacher at our school, and my kids even that.
Good
But
for you.
I don't ever
Good.
rush. No, that's your 15
Good.
minutes. If we're off campus and you
Yes.
lost your 15 minutes, we don't make it up later. You
Right.
just lose it.
Yeah,
So,
well, you know what, they probably are, you know, understanding now that you are really doing their service,
no.
for sure.
Yeah, they all follow the rules. They don't argue anymore. But
Good, yeah.
when the other teachers, we switch classes sometimes in high school, the other teacher lets them have their phones in their pockets and they're
Right.
under the tables texting, and I
Right,
can't
right,
let
yeah,
it.
that's-
I can't control who they're texting. So for me, it's not just the screen time. It's not just looking at the screen. It's
Right.
making contact with people outside of school. I don't know who they're contacting.
Well,
Sure.
they're also breaking their concentration on content
Exactly.
and not.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many reasons why I hate cell phones at school, but
I had a question.
We had that problem last year really bad at our school, and we ended up having to put it into the handbook that is
That
not.
phones had to be put up.
We've
that
had-
falls under that.
We've had professors at ASU, like, it has to be in the syllabus, otherwise students complain about it and take it up the chain if you deduct points for them having them out in class, so.
well, our principal left it up to each individual student, the individual class, what happens in the class. Off campus, they're not allowed. I mean, off campus, I mean, on campus, outside of classrooms, they're not allowed. So there are restrictions, but when individual teachers get to choose, it really kind of makes it difficult for the others, so.
Kind of like school.
Maybe at the next staff meeting.
It's a rule.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I said, I'm like, just say no to everything.
Yeah, maybe at the next staff meeting you should, yeah, or in service you should.
I complain about it every single meeting, so they already know how They're just, it's awesome. Yeah, I know, but it's
I have a question about the 3-week process of the detox.
Yes.
So is it expected at all that children have kind of maybe some negative like reactions like in the first
Oh,
portion of this?
absolutely.
Because it kind of maybe makes it seem like, oh, I take away electronics and like I'm tracking and I see all these positive things. Like I find that a little, like I'm just a little skeptical that that would occur like so immediately. Like I could maybe picture like some almost like withdrawal like
Sure,
symptoms or
absolutely.
difficulties that
Behaviors
come
always
along
get
with
worse
it.
before they
So-
get better.
Right.
That's like
Yeah.
a principle of change.
Right.
It gets worse before it gets better.
So again, with that 3-week time, just one second. In that 3-week time frame, you know, and with that first week, is when it's not just you and, the other adult, in the home, just kind of corresponding or figuring it all out, and then just ta-da, you're working as a family unit to present this and coming up with this plan together in that first week. So there's sort of that preparation phase where you're able to talk about, what it's going to look like. And, I think what I really did like about what Dr. Dunkley said here is that it's not about just the child. It's not about what they're going to have to give up or what it's going to be taken away from them. It's a family issue. And so it's limiting and being aware of your own screen time usage. And so having to regulate that as well and setting up times and guidelines even for you as the adult in the home with screens and coming up with activities. And there's all these different points, which I didn't want to go over all the different points, but I had them here as far as all the things that involve in that first week of prepping and planning for this. And so they're finding that the success rates, especially when you look at it as a family issue and it's a positive thing as opposed to like a negative where you're being punished.
Right. So yeah, my question is along the lines of what you're just saying. So my son is almost 15, or he's almost 16, and I'm looking at some of these solutions, and if I said, let's lock down a scene from a video game, he's like, you're stupid, Mom.
Right.
So my question is this, because we've done a lot of experiments with no screen time, limited screen time, and he literally doesn't know what to do. He has like 3 activities that he does. He reads a book, he listens to music, or he's on the screen. And so when we're limiting severely or we're like no screen time, he will literally follow me around the house saying, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. And if I shoot him away, he goes and harasses his siblings. I'm a mom, I have to cook, I have to help people with homework. I can't be on him like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this?
Right.
Let me help you do this activity. Like, he needs to do his own thing, but he can't figure out what to do. So I'm wondering if, and maybe this book is the answer, that it has some ideas, but I just am at a loss of what to do.
Right.
When he's following me around the house.
Do you give HAB at all?
Do I what?
Rehabilitation?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't get any. He doesn't qualify for anything.
I'm like, that's where it would stick. Let's work one-on-one.
Did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think because I have similar issues with my daughter, and it goes back to the executive functioning, what you were talking about earlier, is being able to plan, prioritize, it's that list, and we kind of have to, I talked to a psychologist about this because I'm like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, you have to be your kid's
frontal
executive function.
Yeah, and we've tried that before though, where it's
made lists.
Yeah, lists and posters and pictures and a notebook of activities. He just nothing.
What about one of the suggestions she made was having like a calendar. I don't know if that would help, or like even like a schedule of stuff. So it's it does sound somewhat rigid, but to be able to kind of help him plan his day out and kind of organize it so it's not so up in the air, and he's able to see, okay, from 5 to 6 this is the activity I'm doing, and then from 6 to 7 or 6 to 6:30 we're having dinner, and then to kind of just really break that down.
We try if you sign them up for like a karate class or
he
Boy
is
Scouts
like
or something.
so anti any of those things. He'll try, and his anxiety gets busted in the stage fright, and then he's like done. And I can't speak for anyone else in the room, but when you're talking about like find a friend or whatever, well, we all go to specialized schools. My kid doesn't have any friends in his neighborhood. They live in like Peoria and Glendale, So it's just not. It's just not an option. But he gets executive function training in school. He has a therapist. She's worked with him on all these types of things. I'm just.
Does he tell us the easy? Well, I can talk to you maybe after more about that too, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. Is there one more?
I was just going to make a recommendation from what I found. It sounds weird, but and I'm answering to you, my dear.
I'm listening.
Have you done B12 injections? Have you guys done that?
No.
So when my guy's not on them, he's like that, like, flails, like, I have nothing to do, I can't do it, like, and then when he's on them, he'll go in his closet and dig out stuffed animals, like for the first time ever, and creates scenarios. Like I couldn't believe spontaneous play that I didn't need to set up, and ideas that, because before, yeah, I had to do every little thing, and it was just amazing that, just as an essential B vitamin that was methylated properly can sometimes have a huge impact on that ability to just create situations for yourself. And it just happens time and time again, and he'll be off of it and then he'll be back on it. We'll go for weeks on and off just to observe, because sometimes I'm like, is it just me? But it's always that happens. So it could be nutritionally. Yeah. So a naturopath or autism.
I'll talk to them. Thank you.
So going on with more tips here, I printed off some copies of screen time contracts, and again, you can modify these, but this would allow for you and your child to be able to develop what the guidelines are, what the expectations are, any consequences that happen if it's not followed, as well as incentives and rewards for successful, follow through on this contract here. Downloading and purchasing parental control systems, if you haven't already done that, strongly recommend getting either an app or downloading that, buying, I have some different options here that families that I work with use, and that really does help kind of, again, monitor what they're watching, and even cuts off the time for them. And then be a good role model, and that's kind of what I was getting at with this electronic fast, is that you're setting the example for the child and for your students. And so to be able to really be aware of your own screen time usage, how many times a day are you looking at your phone to just kind of idly check Facebook or emails, or just kind of checking stuff up, looking up information. You want to be able to make sure that you're limiting that time so that your child sees that, well, how come mom's telling me I have to get off my screens, but you're always on yours? You have to kind of talk the talk, walk the walk. And so to be able to do that, I think really is just invaluable to our children. So this concludes my presentation today. I want to thank everybody for being here, for being able to add to the presentation with your different experiences and questions. I did have, unfortunately, I didn't get it on the main screen here, was my contact information, but I have cards up here, and I will be up here for any questions. And so thank you. I hope everyone has a great day.